I'm in South Lake Tahoe. As you can see, the lake is over here, and just on the other side of those buildings towards the mountain is the Heavenly Lodge, where you have the gondola, and you can actually see the gondola run. That's that strip of snow going up the mountain. What's cool about it, so this is, what are we, February 25th, and I've come through here in mid-February on my motorcycle on my way down to Death Valley, and you can literally walk around in a t-shirt during the day, and yet people are out there skiing. As you can see, there are people here at the lake enjoying both lake time as well as being able to ski. So it's pretty cool. I'll probably end up moving out here just because everything I like to do is here except the ocean, but the lake is a great proxy for the ocean, given that the ocean in Northern California is so cold. This little road here is kind of hidden away. There's a lot of lodging, and during the winter time, we're winter season right now, it's not packed. Let's go down this road a little bit. It's not packed because it's down here by the lake and people are thinking skiing, so they're up by the ski area. This place will be packed like a zoo in the summertime. Perfect for a one-wheel too, because I don't know if I can go all, well, obviously I couldn't go around the whole lake with one charge. I'd have to stop and charge it. I can only go about 16 or 17 miles, but I would be able to stop and get some lunch and charge it at lunch and then keep going. There are people who do it, but there's a pathway that goes around most of the lake.
Sick, man.
I know, right? It's like snowboarding. But yeah, this is cool to be able to come out here and just chill after a day of skiing and snowboarding. That's the other thing. I was skiing and snowboarding early today, and now I'm out here riding my one wheel. It's like wintertime activities and summer activities all at the same time. I'll head up there by Heavenly, and then we'll see the ski area. But for me, this is what life expansion is all about. You know, one of the challenges that we have as we get older is that there's a loneliness epidemic for people who are 60s and 70s, and it's not getting any better. And you would think that with all of the ways to meet up, you know, whether it's Meetup or Zoom, and you can connect and TikTok and all that, it's easier to make these relationships across the globe. But then if you look at how you can build a lifestyle around it, and you go into a town and you can call people, meet up with them, hang out, and get to spend time physically with people that you know online, it's pretty cool. And with LinkedIn, you know, you make more and more connections. You can literally filter on LinkedIn by location and pull up your connections who are in a certain location, and then go visit them. Let them know you're coming into town and visit them. So today I was doing content for Life Expansion After 50, and I was talking about the 7 Fitness Areas framework. That's the framework I use to help people make that shift from have do be to be do have. It's essential because we have to get away from living by habit, which is what we did. You know, by the time we're age 35, most of what we're doing is by habit. And from 35 to 50, that's just reinforced. And it kind of works because there's not a lot of changes that happen from 35 to 50, generally speaking. And so you can be fine living by habit. And you think about things like behavioral descriptive interviewing, they all leverage that. They're essentially hiring people based on their behaviors, and their behaviors are conditioned, which makes it very difficult when you start innovating, because somebody might be very good at one thing in the operational environment for a particular area, but innovation is happening so fast. We call it VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's happening so fast that you're going to have to make adjustments, and if somebody's only living out of their conditioning, it's going to be tough. So life expansion is not just about expanding in terms of doing more. It's about evolving. So you evolve right along as society changes. And if you travel a lot, you notice how the world is like the same all over. You know, the airports, train stations, there's subtle differences, but essentially it's best practices all over, or at least known practices all over. And what's nice about that is it's easy to travel around, but it also tells you how predictable things are. And so from 35 to 50, let's call that a 15-year span, that people kind of get comfortable and you get into a comfort zone. And if you stay in that comfort zone from 35 to 50, then you start looking at 50 to 65 and it's uncomfortable. So this is why I advocate that before you're 50, you want to start leaning into neuroplasticity, learn how to access neuroplasticity and evolve so that you can make those adjustments. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is when you look at VUCA and how to respond to VUCA, it's not adjusting to VUCA, it's about being stable and steady. So you have a tight range between pivoting and your operational mode. So if you're in business, you're going to be operational for a bit, and then you're going to make a pivot, and then you'll be operational. You'll make a pivot, you'll be operational. So this is the area, I'm near the Grand Marriott right now. I'm gonna go across the road here. This is super sketchy because if I don't see a hole, I could fall into it, and me and everything else is gonna smash into the ground. Yeah, so this is the main boulevard in Tahoe. That place over there, they got music playing all the time. I've got to get off of this sketchy surface. Yeah, so you can see the nice mogul run over there, and then there's the gondola run straight up. You can see that going straight up the mountain. I should cross here. So now I'm going to basically go around the Marriott. So this is a cool place. What's nice about staying around Tahoe is you get to come out here, listen to music, reasonable prices, good food, good hangout. And it's so warm down here. It's 55 degrees right now. There's a guy on a motorcycle, window, and it's the perfect place to hang out, come visit. When I'm not here, I'm thinking about dealing with snow, but then when I come here, I think about how it'll be so worth it. Right, so I'm gonna head through I may have to dismount. Yeah, so this is the Grand Marriott Residence area. This is where the gondola is, and I'm not going to go any further this way. There's an ice skating rink. It's pretty cool. Ice skating rink right there. You got all the usual suspects. Starbucks. Oh yeah, I guess I will go around through the gondola. I haven't seen any signs that I can't ride this thing through here yet. When I was talking about the 7 fitness areas roadmap, what I didn't talk about was the relationship, professional, and financial. And on the relationship, financial, and professional, financial area, those are pretty tight because they involve other people. So what I do is I start with recommending books that people can read as best practices. And I have one book per area. But in order to really have a fulfilling life, you first want to step into the be and get to the being, and then you can get into the do and the have. It's like we've got a little hill here. So this is the gondola. You can see the gondola track right there. And here's where you enter. So in the morning, this is all packed up. There's a big line out here, it's all packed. But you could literally come here if you're not skiing, or if you come with the family and there's some non-skiers and you stay in this area. There's so much for people to do during the day. So so the non-skiers can have some fun.
So they're working on
looks like I got a little ramp here I can use. Yeah, so the more I do this, the more I talk myself into wanting to move out here. Actually, another reason I didn't want to move out here is because I like skiing at Palisades, which is North Lake Tahoe, and the distance from here to North Lake Tahoe is about 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But it's just one of those things where it seems like it's a lot of work to do it. And especially since that's my favorite area. Heavenly's not bad, and then Kirkwood is not far from here either. So you can do all of that. But now that I'm skiing Sierra at Tahoe, and they have a season pass, because I'm a super senior, I get a season pass. Check it out, $289 for a season pass this year at Sierra at Tahoe. So it's very easy for me to get a season pass at Sierra at Tahoe and then get my Icon pass for Palisades. And for the winter time, when I want to drive up there, just drive up there. It's no big deal. So this is a little tour of Lake Tahoe. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah, so I was talking about the 7 fitness areas roadmap. When we get into the relationship, professional. Oh, by the way, this is the bus station. So this bus station you can use these buses to get to the other side of Tahoe. So there's the Nevada side of Tahoe and a California side of Tahoe. And these buses, this is the bus depot to get back and forth. You can also ski. Obviously, you can ski there with lifts, but the lifts close and then you can't get back. And so that's where the bus comes in. 7 fitness areas on the relationship, professional, and financial. Once you have your be-do have, and we start with purpose. So you're going to need something like purpose and vision to make it through the work on the be-do have, because it's rough. It's not rough in that it's difficult, physically or mentally difficult. It's rough in that it takes you through so many changes. And those changes create this constant cognitive dissonance, stress, and while you're in the segue or the transition from have do be to be do have, it makes it very difficult. So that's why we like to start with purpose, because when the going gets tough, you've got to lean into purpose, and that's the reason to do it. The good news is only 3 to 6 months. Once you're done there with 3 to 6 months, you're not completely done. It's like basically riding a bicycle and the training wheels are off. You can ride in the street. You're off the sidewalk. You're not running over lawns anymore. You can ride in the street, but you still can't do any stunts for sure. So that's But that gives you a chance, and you can practice, you can start doing reps from there, from that standpoint. Start doing your reps of the 7 fitness areas: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. And then you start leaning into the relationships. The relationships is the first area, because that's where you have to set your boundaries, respect your boundaries, and respect other people's boundaries. And it requires you to do both. Like I said, you have to set the boundaries and live into them. And there's a transition period, and you need to be judicious about it, and maybe go small in the beginning. Once you get the relationship area figured out, you can start doing the professional. A lot of times we're limited professionally because of our inability to navigate complex relationships. And that's why I start with relationships. When you can navigate complex relationships, it starts to make it easier to handle the variety of things that are going to happen in the professional area. And what's cool about shifting into the be, do, have from the have, do, be is you can actually see other people caught up in the habit reaction. So they are living out a reaction instead of letting their reaction be an input and then living out a response. And once you can see it, you realize why people call it the matrix. It really is like the matrix. When you figure the unconscious can process 11 million bits per second, and the conscious mind can only process 50 bits per second, you can see why it's like a matrix, because there's so much going on in the subconscious, and it's all habitual, and the subconscious has a reaction time of a quarter of a second. So people are just living out this matrix-like lifestyle. Probably 90% of the people you run into, if not more, are doing that, and they're living 95% by habit, which is so predictable, which is kind of funny, because Gen Z now and Gen Alpha are starting to use the habit patterns of Gen X. So Gen Z and Alpha Gen are starting to use the habitual patterns of Gen X and baby boomers, and they're literally like taking advantage of the situation. So so a bunch of Gen Z people infiltrated this. Hold on a second, let me get to this navigation thing here. So they infiltrated this organization that they weren't happy about, and they got into positions up, down, and sideways, leadership positions and all that. And to the point where they were in charge of a function. And at this function, they showed out. And not only did they show out, and the police had to come, they had to stop the convention. People had traveled in there, right? They had to cut it down. And then when the police came, there was a person who told the police to let the Gen Z people go, that those weren't the protesters. And that person was part of the Gen Z. So they not only infiltrated, they set the whole thing up where, I mean, it was beautiful. And I would say that, looking back, this is the kind of thing that special ops does in the military, is you learn, you know what people are going to do by habit, and you design your strategies around their habit patterns. And that's what Gen Z did, but they did it because it's so easy to see the habit patterns when you're not living in them. And because Gen Z came up on technology, they're in a different matrix. It's not a matrix, but their conditioning is different. So they can spot it in the Gen Z and the baby boomers, but that's why it's also very difficult sometimes for the Gen Z folks to navigate. So this is where we want to get to. We want to be able to reset your using neuroplasticity. We want to be able to reset yourself each time, or I should say for the new generation. So right now, we're going to be baby boomers, or you're going to be Gen X, but you're also going to build in some neuroplasticity. Using neuroplasticity, you're going to build in some automaticity that works for Gen Z. When Alpha Gen comes in, we'll still be boomers, we'll still be Xers, we'll have all those skills, but we're going to build in some neuroplasticity. I'm going to take this little windy path. We'll build in some neuroplasticity for Alpha generation. And then I guess the Beta generation will come after that, and it'll be the same thing. And these are the ideas, this is what's behind life expansion after 50. If you imagine, whatever age you are, And I mean, it's a little bit difficult to do it while you're working, but you can certainly do it with play. When I was still in corporate, I had 7 weeks of vacation. That was one of the benefits of being in corporate versus on your own. So I'm working to get back to that kind of a lifestyle. And right now I'm going skiing once a week. We're getting back to that kind of a lifestyle where I have time to take off. Because when you're a solopreneur, you know, when you're a solopreneur, it's all day, every day. But I had 7 weeks vacation, so I had my winter sports and I had my summer sports. Whoa. Okay, here we go. I had my winter sports and I had my summer sports, motorcycle track days, car track days, the whole 9 yards. And that was my activity. But now what I'm saying is, now what I'm saying is that rather than focusing on just the activity, I'm resetting myself so that I can live and thrive in a Gen Z world. At first I did it with the millennial world, and now I'm doing it for the Gen Z world. I'm not giving up my baby boomer. I'm still a boomer, right? I'm booming. But I have the automaticity that works for a Gen Z world. I don't want automaticity for a baby boomer world when I'm navigating in a Gen Z world, because then it's like being in the wrong matrix and you're going to be taken advantage of. Not only that, the challenge is, I think, that too many boomers start giving up because they're living out of habit, 95% by habit. They've tried a few things, they've given it a run here and a run there, and it just doesn't work out, and so they pack it in and say, you know what, it's not going to work. And so it's important to get that neuroplasticity momentum started and then continuing. Let's see how my battery's doing. Oh, look at that. I have what time to do one more lap. Go down by the lake. I'm going slow enough, I guess. So by working out the relationships and getting it to the point where your relationships, they're still going to be on automaticity, but the automaticity is reset. Think of automaticity as the subconscious working with the reticular activating system. That automaticity is what you're conditioned to do. And it makes sense, right? We don't want to be figuring out how to brush our teeth every day. But that same automaticity gets us into problems. If you're running automaticity from 50 years ago, you're going to be feeling off too often today. So what we're doing is setting the automaticity for the world that you want to be in. And my automaticity may be different from your automaticity. That's why it starts with purpose. Because if you start with purpose, the theory is, or the thinking goes, that you will continue to have that same purpose all the way until, you know, you're gone. And so if your purpose is the same, what you do and how you serve people may be different, but it's all going to be directional. And so if you think about your purpose being 12 o'clock on the face of a clock, so you take a clock face and you lay it down, and 12 o'clock is forward. And if that's your purpose, and then the way you serve people, your mission and your activities, they are in line with that. So now what you're going to be doing is pivoting from the 1 o'clock position to the 11 o'clock position on that clock face. And that's what I'm doing right now on this one wheel. I'm pivoting from 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock, but my direction of travel is all around 12. And so that pivoting from 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock, think about it. From 12 to 11, from 12 to 11 is 15%, or 15 degrees. From 12 to 11 is 15 degrees. Right? Because of then 11 to 10 is another 15, 11 to 9 is another 15, there's your 45 degrees. So 11 to 1 is 30 degrees. That's a pretty big range. If my purpose is 12 o'clock and I have my mission aligned to 12 o'clock, and because there's VUCA, we're gonna have to pivot. And just like on the one wheel, I'm pivoting about 30 degrees. It's actually a little more than 30 degrees. But the benefit of pivoting 30 degrees early is that I'm not losing momentum. If I wait too long, I'm gonna have to make a 90-degree turn. And that 90-degree turn means I give up too much momentum. So by pivoting, I keep my momentum, and then I'm looking out forward. So change doesn't freak me out. VUCA doesn't concern me, because here's what we know. There may be VUCA, but the thing that we can count on is that VUCA is going to be subservient to fear and greed, tribal affiliations. Those things are what's going to drive the VUCA. And because fear, greed, tribal affiliations, it's all human nature, it's all baked into the conditioning, generation by generation by generation, as long as you're looking out ahead, you can see the changes coming. So you want to have KPIs, not just KPIs to make sure that things are going well. You want to have KPIs so that you have an early indicator when things are not going well. You want to be able to make those adjustments early rather than late. And when you're doing that, you can run a little bit faster because you know you have the answers. The other thing is that people don't realize is that virtually every big catastrophe that happened was completely unexpected. And you know what? The next big catastrophe will be completely unexpected. Listening to a book, it has to do with forever the same, or always forever the same, something like that. And what he said was, there are these 100-year events, like you've heard of 100-year floods and 100-year storms and 100-year epidemics and things like that. He said it doesn't mean that it happens once every 100 years. What it means is that it has a 1% chance of happening in any given year. So now you can have 200, I'm making that number up, 200 100-year events. That means any given day or any given year, we gotta have 200-year events happen. Just let that sink in a minute. So like the same way that California plans for earthquakes, they don't know where the next earthquake is gonna be, but they plan for it. And when it happens, they've got a plan and they're gonna move forward. So we know that there's gonna be some big shock that happens again in our lifetime. Hopefully it won't be as big as the pandemic, but we have to be prepared. And the way you're prepared is not by over-preparing. The way to be prepared is to have enough reserves and to be able to flex enough so that you can make those pivots and you see it in advance. So you can pivot that 30 degrees without losing momentum. Now, I could go much faster than I'm going right now. I have to slow it down because when I'm recording, I don't always see the holes in the bumps if I'm going too fast, and that's nosedive. And the same way I'm slowing down to be able to pivot around any hole, what we're gonna do is put in some savings. This same book talking about forever the same, he says that the amount to be saving, there's no magical number. How do you know how much to save? But he said, you've got to be saving enough so that it hurts a little bit. You've got to save to the point where it's uncomfortable. And then you're probably saving enough for the next big pivot, the next big shock that happens. People say 6 months of income, 2 years of income. I don't know if 6 months is enough anymore to be able to sustain yourself for that long. So there, and that's the relationship. And then in the professional area, I actually have 2 books I like to recommend. So relationship area, believe it or not, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There are other books as well, but that one is a good start and you can't go wrong with it. And then when it gets to the professional, There's actually 2 books that I like. Well, it's almost 3, but 2 authors. Jim Collins, Good to Great, and then Great by Choice. And for business people, it depends on where they are. If they are in an existing business already, I'm more thinking Good to Great. And then if they're starting a business, we want to look at Great by Choice and start building those habits in early on. But the other book I like, so Great by Choice and Good to Great, is sort of like the project plan. This is how you make those pivots. This is how you decide what to do next. The other book I like is The Multipliers, because the multipliers tells you how to lead. And then the financial piece, that's just, you've got to figure that out on your own. I'm not making a lot of edicts around that because it's complex. The big thing is compounding works. Focus on compounding. But, there's so many people who've done all the right things and still lost everything. So you've got to do your research on that one. And again, the right side, the relationship, professional, and financial, is not really where I'm spending my time, because once you have your purpose and you figure out how to live consciously and leveraging the powerful present moments, you will work out for yourself what that right side should look like. And that's the objective. So there you go.